Croeso and welcome to Tales of Wales, the podcast there we don't have an intro because we're on a bit of a tight schedule and I didn't prepare one, even though I'm doing the research this week.
I just did the thing where, you know, it goes 5, 4, 3, 2 into the countdown. I was like, I haven't got an intro, Franks. But it's okay. Yeah. We started out.
Yeah, so maybe we could think of one. The podcast is always
never fails to cross the strait of knowledge to the banks of history.
What's that fat green alien in that film? What's that film with the big fat alien? And it says, "Don't cross the streams."
The big fat green alien, Ghostbusters. What's that big fat green alien? Literally a ghost.
But what ghosts look like that? I mean, come on. Do you know what I've gotten really into?
What?
Eggers.
Eggers?
The director.
Oh, as in Robert Eggers.
Yeah,
Rob Those Eggers. Kids that egg your house,
No.
like, usually on Halloween.
No.
Robert Eggers is, what a guy.
I just bought yesterday, because I started watching Nosferatu on the plane.
I like Nosferatu. So atmospheric.
Well, I was watching on the plane, I thought, this isn't right. This is not how it should be done.
You're not giving him his dues there.
So I literally, as I landed yesterday, so been away Brazil for 10 days. Check out the Patreon. We just did an episode around Brazil and my tales in Brazil, but we'll save that for the Patreon because some accents are done, which might not be viable for the main feed.
The main feed cannot hear these things.
So if you want to see our acting skills and accent work, head on over to the Patreon, where you can get 2 extra episodes a month plus extra bonus stuff, which I cannot for the life of me tell you right now.
Can't be bothered. You get a load of stuff. It's all on the website. Go to Patreon and see it all there.
Yeah, we had a Patreon, and we're a listener-supported podcast, so the Patreon people are the absolute best. They keep the lights on. This is another cry for help as well, because we're coming up to our TV debut soon, and we desperately need help on how to do a quiz. So if anyone here is clever at pub quizzes, please, for the love of God, get in touch.
I love the panic that's just increasing in both of us, because it's like, it is just literally a question and answer thing. We're like, has anyone got any techniques like to just make my brain better than it is?
I think we have to generally mean you have to do some quizzes
to do a bit of swatting up, a little bit of swatting up,
because I'm away the week before as well.
General knowledge. There's a million questions.
But apparently there are things of how you can do it. It's like learn like capitals of the work.
Are we going to do like the go into a mind palace like Darren Brown, like the eyes roll back?
I think I did text you like we'll split the categories.
Yeah, we did have a little list to do, didn't we? And I am going to watch some Welsh language quiz shows. I'm sure there must be a treasure trove on S4C Click or something somewhere, because I think that's where I'm going to trip up is the Welsh. I'm going to be too busy trying to decode it, even though I understand Welsh. I think like very specific things. I'll be like, "What's that in English?" I have to translate it. Someone will beat us to the buzzer.
But we will get smashed afterwards. And Handsome Luke is coming out with us for drinks afterwards.
Handsome Luke.
But anyway, what were we saying then? So ghost streams, Patreon. What was I saying?
Robert Eggers.
Oh yeah, man. So that minute I landed back in Brazil after 20 minutes sleep in like 48 hours. I got back to Bridgend train station flew from Rio, landed in London, from London back to Bridgend. I got off at Bridgend with my like suitcase and stuff, went straight to Kex, and I was like, Daddy's home. And I bought Nosferatu on Blu-ray. And then
excellent choice.
And I bought The Vitch on Blu-ray. So
which is good.
Yeah, because I'm off today because I got some days in lieu, which is a funny little term because I work loads of weekends. And I'm going to do an Eggers backwards. And I really like the Northman.
Back-to-back egging.
I've not seen the Lighthouse, though, which is meant to be a bit...
Lighthouse is good. It's, that's another good one. That's a bit more like, what's the word? Metaphorical-ish, sort of. It's like, the Northman is a proper narrative, do you know what I mean? Like, that's there's a story going through it.
Yeah.
Nosferatu, there's a story going through it. I'd say the Lighthouse, there is one, but a lot of it is like what's real, what's not. There's a lot of those sorts of questions.
Sometimes it's a bit too much. But anyway, into Eggers, check. Also, keen for us to do, we haven't done a late night record, like Dirty Hollyoaks After Dark.
We should do like a triple episode or something like that, where we can get a little bit later.
Jack's just bought the all the history around Llywelyn and Llywolaf. So in about a year's time, we're going to probably do a big.
It will be a while before.
I mean, it's a monster. But for those ones,
it's a big old book. He's back.
Okay, now I was just dicking about with my my numlock.
Oh yeah, just like close everything.
I just pushed numlock and everything disappeared. But yeah, we got an expert coming on in a couple of weeks' time, called Cymru Untold, who is who did a dissertation on some of the kings and stuff which is just a bit before the time we kind of cover. So it's like late 9th century and stuff. Ooh. Which I've been reading a book on by Caddy, what's her name? But she did one called Welsh Kings, which I texted my friend saying, guess what I'm reading right now? And she replied saying, I know a book about Welsh Kings, and it's literally called Welsh Kings. I was like, yeah, she knows you. It's
got you pigeonholed.
Yeah. As you got work to do, and we're a bit tired. I know we shouldn't complain about being tired. People don't want to listen to us moan. No. But shall I jump straight into the episode?
Yeah, sure. I was only going to say I watched Last of the Mohicans Pest the other night. And it was fucking brilliant. It was. It's
on my list.
I'd seen it before, but I couldn't remember it for love nor money. I think my granddad showed it to me one time when I was too young to be like that bothered.
It's a prime granddad film to show you, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And he was into all like the Indians and things.
And granddads loved Native Americans versus cowboys, didn't they?
They did, Cowboys. Yeah. My granddad was always on about him. He had a Bowie knife above his little armchair he used to sit in. He used to tell me about how it was perfect for throwing because like I think it's like the weight it would like rotate perfectly or something like that. And I was probably like 5 years old, like cool, cool. Killing Native Americans, I got you. But yeah, no, I was just going to say that was absolutely fantastic, especially when I had a little bit of a rum in me. I was just very, very into it. Daniel Day-Lewis, Michael Mann directing, amazing score. Just, yeah.
It's been on my Sky watch list for fucking ages, and I'm always tempted to whack it on, but it's like 2 hours long.
It is a long year,
yeah. All right, and now you've said that will inspire me, because I've come back with a yearning for some good films.
Oh, check it out, man. I love it.
Yeah. I will be watching that. But this is another thing that should be made into a film, because this is one of the earliest episodes we did, but we're coming back to it because the quality of those early ones was shit. We've got a fucking truckload of new listeners since then, so we thought we'd kind of even this isn't a sign that we're running out of episodes. We've still got hundreds in the spreadsheet.
Don't listen to the haters. All right, we've got loads to do, but we just want to give this one its dues, didn't it? Because
that's the thing. We did like the first 10 episodes cover some of the best moments in Welsh history, and we were dog shit doing the pod back then. I don't say we haven't changed, because we have, right?
Do not.
But this one here,
with that.
Yeah, this one here is now just telling more of the story, right? Then we used to do this thing called Dick of the Day, and
we were just babes when we were on the podcast.
yeah. But so most of you probably, I don't know, a lot of you might not have heard this. You might have heard it before, but we did it like 4 years ago, so it's a nice refresher. And this is called the Battle of the Bridge of Boats, or the Battle of Moel Y Don. And if you've never heard of Moel Y Don, you obviously aren't a Day One Tales of Wales fan, because, like I said, it's one of the first dog shit episodes we ever did, and I don't blame you if you've not heard it. So it's actually probably best if you haven't heard it. But we wanted to look back at this one because, A, like I mentioned a minute ago, our early episodes were pony, and B, it tends to be overshadowed by the death of Llywelyn a month later. So in many ways, it's kind of an unforgotten one. But it's also one of the greatest Welsh victories of the entire war, and one of Edward I's worst military setbacks in Wales. So ironically, despite the name, modern historians now think the battle probably wasn't fought near Moel Y Don at all, but the traditional name is stuck. But research suggests the fighting took place further north on the Menai Strait, closer to Bangor or Traeth Lafan. But to set the scene, Edward thought Wales was already beaten. So following the Treaty of Aberconwy in 1277, Llywelyn ap Griffiths had been stripped of much of his territory and authority. Edward I believed he had effectively broken the power of the Prince of Wales, but Edward had overplayed his hand. English officials...
silly Longshanks.
Yeah, Longshanks. English officials imposed their authority across Wales, whilst many Welsh nobles had previously sided with Edward became increasingly resentful. Llywelyn's own brother, Dafydd ap Griffiths, who helped Edward in 1277... turned against him. This guy's fucking turncoat. Doesn't know
he's a flip-flopper.
So once again, rebellion begins, and on Palm Sunday, 1282, Dafydd launched a surprise attack at Hawarden Castle, killing most of the English garrison there. Edward I was absolutely fuming with this, and was so furious he designed a punishment for Dafydd harsher than any previous form of capital punishment. So Dafydd was hung, drawn and quartered in Shrewsbury over a year later in 1283. And for those who don't know, being hung, drawn and quartered was the punishment you see in Braveheart, our beloved Braveheart.
Wasn't Dafydd ap Griffith the first man that ever happened to as well?
this next line was David was the first recorded person to suffer this grisly fate. So Diane. Maybe if that comes up on the quiz, we'll get it right.
Yeah, we'll get that one. Will we? Because I remember that was like obviously a pivotal scene in Braveheart, and so that's something they kind of stole from the Welsh there. But fine, it works in the movie.
I think he was hung, drawn, and quarters, wasn't he?
Was he?
Braveheart. I don't know. I know he wasn't the only person. David wasn't the.
He wasn't the only, but he was the. But he was the first, wasn't he? Imagine that. That's your.
Yeah, I know.
Quite the thing.
Yeah.
You're gonna what to me?
So when he found out what it was, because you might think hung, drawn, and quartered. Yeah, I'm quite hung. Thank you. You're gonna draw me. What's this quartered? But the first part is you are dragged by a horse to the town. Then you're hung alive. You're hanged alive, but you're not kicked off. So you're pulled up from your feet. Rather, if you get hung, normally your neck snaps and you die. But for this, they hang you. So you're on the floor and they get a rope and they pull you up from the feet. So so you're choking, but you're kept alive throughout all of it. And then they disembowel you while your bowels are removed, pulled out of your stomach, and then burnt in front of you. And then finally, just before you die, you're beheaded, and your body is split into 4 quarters and sent to different English towns. So
nasty way to go.
Yeah, it's because the reason why he was so angry about it was because he did it on on a religious day. And this is this account from the Chronicle of Lancaster. Lancaster, the Welsh nation unable to pass their. This is such a funny thing to put the blame on Wales. The Welsh nation unable to pass their lives in peace, as if it was the Welsh.
They just can't help themselves, can you?
They broke over their borders on Palm Sunday, carrying fire and sword among the people engaged in procession, and even laid siege. Whose Prince Llewellyn, deceived, more's the pity, by the advice of his brothers David fiercely attacked his lord the king. As we read written about Christ, he whom I loved has most set himself against me.
It's so funny as well, hypocritical of Longshanks to be like on bloody Palm Sunday as well, on the day of the Lord, when it's like the dodgy shit that he does, the unchivalrous shit that he gets up to.
Yeah. Well, despite what this dork wrote in this registry thing, Llewellyn hesitated to join because he was like, I'm not too sure. And joining the rebellion would mean breaking the oath of loyalty he'd sworn to Edward. But as this revolt had gone across Wales, Llewellyn committed himself to war because there's this really cool passage, but I'll probably leave it for you to do in your episode. It's a quite cool thing to sign off on, where he said he just couldn't betray the people of Wales. And he had to, it was kind of his...
because the big one, Llewellyn's, the big Llewellyn's rebellion was last, rather. It was incited by his brother more than anything, wasn't it? Like you say, but he did get drafted in. On people.
So transforming what began as his brother's uprising into a national conflict against English rule. So Edward responded exactly how you expect, with fire and fury. He was the original Operation Fury, which is now what Trump's doing in Iran. Rather than relying on one huge army, he invaded Wales from multiple directions, and his aim was simple: squeeze Gwynedd from every side, isolate Llewellyn, cut off supplies, and prevent the Welsh from using the mountains to their advantage. One important force was the English force was sent to Anglesey or Ynys Môn. It was led by Luke Detani, an experienced royal soldier and former constable of Gascony. He commanded roughly around 2,000 infantry and 200 cavalry, so it was a decent force, plus all the stuff that comes with that. So, there's some archers, there's some squires, all the malarkey, so a decent size. And their mission was to occupy Ynys Môn, which is known as the breadbasket of Wales, because of the land, how good it is for fertilisation.
Farmland up there, isn't it?
Yeah, and then they went to cross the Menai Strait into the Welsh mainland. And what's important to note here is that Ynys Môn, like we mentioned, is not just any other island. For centuries, it's been the agricultural heartland of Gwynedd. It produced huge amounts of quantity of grain. If you wanted to control Wales or Gwynedd, which is where the most of the power was, you've got to control Ynys Môn. You can starve the princes of Gwynedd into submission that way, and Edward understood that perfectly. English occupied much of the island and began preparing a crossing onto the mainland. And this is where the story gets quite effing cool, if I do say so, my critical self. Rather than ferrying thousands of troops individually, the English constructed a floating bridge from boats lashed together across the Menai Strait, which is a really ambitious and mad feat of medieval engineering. So they turned all the boats to the side and wrapped them together, tied them in, and the idea was then they could all go over in one cohesive unit, so they better you're not rowing back and forth.
It's certainly out of the box thinking, isn't it? Like there's like a debrief for the English commander. No idea is a bad idea. Come on, just give me anything you want. Strap some boats together, make a bridge.
So we can't all just sit on the boats and row them at the same time.
No. I want to do something impressive, something new.
Well, I think one of the reasons why they didn't want to go on the boats was because the water around there can be quite dangerous.
Yeah,
and they were worried that they'd float. They wouldn't be able to all come over in one go without drifting away. But there's also, it's quite hard to determine exactly what led them to this. But anyway, the Welsh sat and they watched. They watched them build it and they waited. The battle's often referred to as the Battle of the Bridge of Boats for this reason. So let's get into it. Shall we? My little swine army. My little army of
little piggies.
On 6th of November, 2 days after my birthday, in 1282, Luke de Taney crossed the river. And the reasons aren't completely clear, but some historians think he crossed before receiving the full royal approval, believing the Welsh were either retreating or that he had the opportunity to seize the mainland quickly. Others say a monk tricked him into coming over sooner, which was safe, and others think he was going for glory. So he's either thought he could see the Welsh retreating, or a monk had kind of said, come over now, the Welsh aren't ready for you. Or he thought, I'm just going to go head on and steal the glory and be the hero of the day. The surviving evidence doesn't allow any certainty, but as the English troops poured across the bridge, Llywelyn was there ready and waiting with a decent-sized force. So this indicates he probably would have been alerted because his forces would just camp there because the English wouldn't have crossed over had Llywelyn been there with a decent army. So it makes me think that the English were tricked and Llywelyn had a monk do some sneaky monkey business.
A monk doing monk business, yeah.
As a quick aside, do you ever remember that poster? I love this poster of that monkey in a suit with a briefcase, and on it just says, "It's nothing personal, kid. It's just monkey business."
I haven't. I don't know that, but I like it.
It's good. Yeah, have a little Google of that now. It's a great laugh. Anyway, the unknown English began to cross this rickety bridge of boats, and you guessed it, the Welsh forces attacked ferociously. As soon as the English were nearly all on the boats and about to disembark, the front of the Snake was hammered with javelins and arrows, and those that made it off the boats were then speared to death. So at the very first part of it, then they get
loads of running into a wall of spears,
Yeah, and then amongst all this chaos, the bridge began to break and collapse under the weight and the stress of all the English being confused. So then a whole bunch of the English soldiers fell into the fast-moving tidal rivers on the Menai Strait and, due to their heavy armour, were unable to stay afloat and they soon drowned. While others that survived were picked off as soon as they got to shore. So it was a disaster for England. The esteemed Luke de Taney was killed. Contemporary estimates suggest over 400 English soldiers died, but many more are thought to have perished than that. Many drowned rather than being killed in combat, so they might not have been counted for deaths in the same way. And it's also, the contemporary people wrote this didn't want it to look as awful for Edward as it actually was, because this was humiliating.
Always the same story, isn't it, with like the losses in battle, especially if there was a victor in the end. They go, oh, it wasn't even that bad, like he didn't even do much.
Yeah, but it was... The reason why they think it's more is because this was one of his main invasion columns and it had been effectively completely destroyed. So it was seen as his giant Welsh win. And there are some reasons why the whole battle favoured the Welsh. The English were vulnerable crossing this mad, narrow bridge. The Menai Strait limited their ability to deploy cavalry properly, so their horses couldn't gallop over and smash into the Welsh. And then once the panic began, retreat became almost impossible because the tidal waters turned, the people were drowning. It turned like this ordinary defeat, which they could have just ran away from, into catastrophe because so many people started drowning. And also the
Poseidon was on the side of the Welsh.
A true just god. The Welsh had exploited both geography and timing, but did it change the war? Let's find out, shall we?
I'll tell you now. Yeah.
For a brief moment, it looked like it might. The victory massively boosted Welsh morale, and it proved Edward's armies were not invincible. But then Edward had something the Welsh didn't have, which was resources. He simply just raised more and more troops, and within weeks, the English resumed their invasion. And then came the catastrophe on 11th of December, 1282.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, maybe I'll save it because it's going to be covered later. But we all know that's where the big man died. His death transformed the war. And although Dafydd continued resistance until 1283, Welsh independence was effectively doomed.
Sad day.
And that's... Yeah, and Moel Y Don became something of a forgotten victory because it was overshadowed. but it was one of the greatest battlefield defeats ever suffered by Edward I in Wales. It was a rare example of the English army being comprehensively outmaneuvered during the conquest, and evidence that Welsh commanders could defeat a larger, better equipped force by exploiting terrain and timing. Yet because Llywelyn died only a few weeks later, history remembers the end of the campaign far more than the greatest Welsh success.
You would have been on an all-time high after that, though, wouldn't you? After Moel Y Don, you'd be thinking, victory is a possibility. We can do it. And then a couple of weeks later, oh dear.
Yeah.
But there we go.
That there is a very tired Welshman telling you about a very cool battle, and I'm afraid, folks, that's your lump for now. But I think we got. When's our next episode going to air? What we got coming up on the old roster? So we've got
a few
guests coming on. Maybe actually we don't normally tell people what's coming up. I've lost my mind. But anyway, stay tuned.
But as usual, if you've got a subject we haven't covered yet and you're really keen for us to chat about it, maybe something we haven't heard of or whatever, give us an email at talesforwales@gmail.com or give us a comment on whatever. Go on Insta.
People DM us a lot on Insta. That's really a good way of getting us.
And we'll populate our little to-do list because we got quite a lot to get through, but we're always keen to add some more stuff. So
we got some Welsh cinema we got coming up as well, and we let people know in advance for that, so we can. We also got a series of modern day resistance. So we got Mabon Glyndŵr and the Mac Freedom Fighters. We're going to do a double bill on that. Anyway, I'm so fucking tired, man. I've lost my marbles.
Let's call it a day. All right, diolch, Paolo. Thanks very much. Ta-ra.